Ms. Brown, but if you want to call the meeting to order, I think we should go ahead and get busy.
Thank you. It's 9 o'clock, so if it's okay, I would like to call the meeting to order.
Good deal.
All right.
Rebecca?
Okay, one moment. I'm going to start the recording.
Thank you so much.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Vocational Psychiatric Technical August 2022 Board. My name is Dr. Carol Mountain. I'm the board president. I would like to call this meeting to order at 9. First, we do have some housekeeping information on how this meeting will be conducted. This meeting is being held via WebEx on Friday, August 12, 2022. If we need a motion, I will call for a motion. Any board member can use the raise hand function for recognition to make or second a motion. I will take a roll call vote for each motion. We will take public comment. Members of the public who request to speak will have up to 3 minutes to speak. You will be notified when you have 30 seconds remaining. Your name is not necessary, but please indicate how you would like us to identify you. For the sake of efficiency, the executive officer may respond directly to public comment or defer to the appropriate staff person or counsel as appropriate. For any questions directed to board members, I will either answer the question or direct it to the board member as appropriate. We'd like to request that those who are able to please turn their cameras on, especially when speaking. I know this is an issue for people with bandwidth. The best you can. I will now do an alphabetical roll call to establish quorum. For the record, I would like to note that board member Tara Brooks is absent and excused from today's meeting. As I call your name, please indicate that you're here. Ms. Brown? Not here yet. Okay. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
John Durking is here.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Abraham Hill here.
Thank you. Ms. Luce?
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey?
Present.
Thank you. And Ms. Neeblas?
Present.
And I'm Carol Mountain. On the roll call, we have a quorum.
Madam Chair, I might, if I may, your speaking frequency is cutting in and out. So could you please make certain that you got the microphone right up?
All right. Better?
Yes.
We will take an item out of agenda order. Agenda item 7, board update from DCA. Ms. Mary Catherine Cruz Jones is here from the DCA Executive Office. Thank you, Ms. Cruz Jones. Do any of the board members have questions?
Not yet.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for also allowing me to take this item out of order. So my name is Mary Kate Cruz Jones, and I'm giving this Department of Consumer Affairs update today on behalf of the Executive Office. The governor signed Senate Bill 189 on June 30th, 2022, which reinstitutes through July 1, 2023, the remote meeting provisions of the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act that was in place during the pandemic. The changes took effect immediately upon signing. Please be aware that DCA wants you to have the right meeting for the business of the board or bureau while still taking into consideration both costs and public participation. We are asking boards to still track the costs for meetings, even those where there wasn't travel involved, and we are asking that we use WebEx as much as possible to allow the public to attend remotely, especially as COVID-19 numbers continue to rise. DCA is still asking boards to complete the public meeting survey to assist in tracking these costs for your board meetings in order to be able to continue to compare costs for in-person and WebEx, since this legislative change is only in place for this fiscal year. We have distributed the surveys to all boards and bureaus and ask that they be completed within 30 days after each meeting is held. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at DCA. Though legislation has passed allowing remote meetings, we are reminding boards that choose to hold in-person meetings of the following safety measures, best practices, and recommendations for holding public meetings. When planning for upcoming meetings, please remember all board and bureau members and staff are expected to follow the state and local public health guidelines that apply in the area where meetings are held. Face coverings are strongly recommended for all board members and staff at meetings. The California Department of Public Health strongly recommends that individuals continue to mask in indoor settings. Please post face covering guidance signage at your meeting, at the check-in or entrances. Vaccination and testing. Prior to meeting in person or at a remote location, members need to submit vaccination verification to DCA's Office of Human Resources or be subject to COVID-19 testing. We are pleased to announce that the inaugural report of the Enlightened licensing project is now available and was distributed to all boards and bureaus on Friday, May 13th. This innovative and collaborative project was started to streamline and enhance licensing processes by utilizing the knowledge and expertise of subject matter experts within DCA's boards and bureaus. The project was conducted in partnership with the Board of Registered Nursing. After a thorough assessment of some of BRN's licensing processes, the project's co-chairs provided recommendations to introduce new ideas and implement best practices for critical licensing activities. DCA held a brown bag event on June 1 to review the recommendations with all boards and bureaus, and we hope that other boards and bureaus will learn from this report and implement the recommendations where applicable. We believe it is so important to learn from each other and share our knowledge. We will be turning to a new board or bureau soon for the next Enlightened licensing project soon, and we are so excited to share those updates as we have them. DCA also recently held a brown bag meeting with executive officers and bureau chiefs on July 5th to roll out changes to DCA's regulation development and approval process. These changes were also discussed and approved by DCA's executive officer and bureau chief cabinet. DCA shared documentation on the process and changes with all boards and bureaus. DCA is pleased to announce that Nicole Lay was hired on June 24th as the Deputy Director of DCA's Office of Administrative Services. With more than 20 years of state service experience, Nicole has dedicated 10 of those years to DCA. Most recently, she served as the Acting Deputy Director of the Office of Administrative Services, where she was responsible for overseeing the business functions of human resources, fiscal operations, and the business services offices. Prior to this role, Nicole was chief of the DCA Office of Human Resources. She was also previously at Contractor State Licensing Board and the Department of Motor Vehicles. We are very excited to have her a part of DCA's executive leadership team. It's with great sadness that we announce some transitions that have happened here within our Board and Bureau Relations unit. Carrie Holmes, the Deputy Director of Board and Bureau Relations, and probably a face you all have come accustomed to, left DCA on May 13th. Additionally, Brianna Miller has also accepted another position and left DCA on June 10th. DCA appreciates the support and service that both Brianna and Carrie have provided to all of our boards and bureaus. They have both been a huge asset to the department. I'd like to assure you that during this transitional period, DCA Executive Office and Board and Bureau Relations will continue to ensure continuity of services to all DCA boards and bureaus. If you need anything, please feel free to contact DCA Member Relations via email, or you can call the DCA Executive Office directly, and we are here to help. The department was recently advised by the State Controller's Office that there will be a delay in processing the approval of travel expense claims until the end of July due to setting up the new fiscal year budget in the fiscal system. We appreciate your patience, and claims will be processed as quickly as they can once we are able to use the system again. And lastly, board members are required to complete the BMOT within 1 year of appointment or reappointment. The final training of 2022 will be offered October 12th, 2022. Members can register through DCA's learning management system. BMOT is required for newly appointed and reappointed members, but it is also a great refresher for any other members that would like to join us, and we'd love to have you. Please reach out to Board and Bureau Relations with any questions that you may have. And as always, DCA is here to help. So if there's anything that we can do to assist, we'd love to help you out. And that concludes my update today. So I'm happy to take any questions that members may have if they've come up now. And if not, I'm happy to turn it back over to Miss Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cruz. That was excellent report. Do any of the board members have any questions? Seeing no raised hands, we will go back to the agenda order. Item number 2, introduction of board staff. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Elaine Yamaguchi, Executive Officer. With us today, actually a good representation of our team. Antoinette Wood, our Enforcement Chief. Beth DeYoung, our Acting SNEC. Shelley Jones from Licensing. Jay Prouty from Discipline. Doris Piers, our Legend Reg Specialist. Curtis Gardner, our relatively new Probation Manager. Rochelle Lee from Enforcement. And let's see, take all the managers. Then Alex Clark, Cheryl De Cristoforo, Carolyn Marcino, Jose Ruiz, Christine Dano, and Michael Hall. And if I left anybody off, I do apologize. Our NECs, Charlene De La Rosa, Jessica Gomez, Faye Silverman, Cindy Fairchild, and Judith McLeod. Council?
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi. Madam Chair, Kenneth Swenson, General Counsel for the Board.
Thank you so much for the introductions. We will move on to item 3, acceptance of the minutes from the May 20, 2022 board meeting. We have minutes from our board meeting on May 2022 to approve. These are included in your packets and posted online. The links to the YouTube videos of each board meeting are printed in this agenda. Can I have a motion to approve and a second for the May 20, 2022 minutes?
John Deerking would move to approve.
Thank you.
Seconded by Ken Maxey.
Thank you so much. Any discussion or questions? Any public comment?
If there's any public comment and you are on the website or the web link, please enter a comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand side of the screen. If you are on the phone, please press *3 to raise your hand to be in queue. Receiving no public comment, Dr. Mountain.
Thank you. I will do a roll call and establish who's in favor, opposed, or abstains. Ms. Brown? Oh, not here, I apologize. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey? Has Mr. Maxey left?
No, it's a yes. Sorry.
Thank you. And Ms. Neeblis?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm also a yes. The motion to approve the May 2022 minutes carries by a unanimous vote. Item 4, fiscal and budgets update. Fund condition and budget updates. Department of Consumer Affairs, the DCA budget staff.
Good morning. My name is Bill Lloyd, and I'm a budget analyst with the DCA Budget Office. First, I want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present the fund condition statement and the revenue and expenditure projections. Once I complete my presentation, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I have with me today Karen Munoz, a budget manager with the DCA Budget Office. Please refer to the agenda item 4A documents. These documents are what I will be discussing today. They provide a lot of information on the board's budget, both expenditures and revenues, and the projected fund balance into the future. Pages 3 and 4 of the item 4A documents is the board's revenue expenditure projections, which provides the board with a detailed account of year-to-date totals, as well as the remaining 21-22 fiscal year projected balances. The board projects a net expenditure of approximately $18.5 million by the end of fiscal year 21-22, and revenues are anticipated to come in about $17.8 million. This creates a structural imbalance with expenditures outpacing revenue. The board voted to increase fees at the earlier board meeting. These fee increases are set to begin with an effective date of 9/21/22 and should correct the structural imbalance. Next, I will pivot to the board's fund condition statement on page 5. Today, we will focus on the PY column, or past year, for 21-22. We begin the fiscal year with a fund balance of close to $4.1 million. And based on FM11 receipts, the board is projecting to bring in approximately $17.8 million in revenue. For expenditures, the board is estimated to expend $20.6 million. This will leave the board with a reserve balance of just under $1.3 million, or 0.08 months in reserve. Months in reserve is the amount of time the board can continue normal operations without any incoming revenues. For the budget year and ongoing, the fund is estimated to receive approximately $19.3 million in revenues, which include newly implemented school fees, and expend $19.1 million. A few things to note. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is the result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes an ongoing 3% increase in expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. The fund condition does not include increased enforcement expenditures, which could create additional cost pressures to the board in out years. The budget office will continue to work with the board on any future resource need. Months in reserve will always go down in out years as we project revenues to remain constant and expenditures to increase by 3%, as I mentioned previously. And lastly, we would like to note that the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would increase pressure on the fund. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep a line of communication with the board's executive staff open for any future needs or expectations. Again, I want to thank the board members and executive staff for inviting me to today's meeting, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing no questions, once again, thank you so much for that report. We will move on to item 5, education reports, recommendations, and possible actions. Education Division report, Ms. DeYoung.
Thank you, Dr. Mountain. Good morning, everyone. I am happy to answer any questions you have regarding the submitted Education Division report. I do have one update, however, which I'm delighted to mention. Within the narrative on the very first page under the section, excuse me, initial approval of new school programs. So at the time of the division report was submitted, we had received 6 completed new school program applications out of the 9 proposed programs who submitted the letter of intent. Presently, all 9 proposed programs have submitted their complete application and have been assigned to an NEC working towards their program approval. And lastly, I would like to conclude by mentioning the retirement of our former supervising NEC, Marie Cordero, who retired back in June. Marie will be greatly missed by all, but we wish her the best in her retirement. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that report and the great news that all 9 program applications have been received. That's excellent. Are there any questions from the board? Can I have a motion and a second to approve and ratify the executive officer program decisions for the period from April 19, 2022 to June 28, 2022, listed in the report dated August 12, 2022? Any discussion or question after that?
So moved by Ken Maxey.
Thank you.
Seconded by Luz.
Thank you. Are there any discussion or questions from the board? Seeing no hands raised, are there any public comments?
If you'd like to make a comment and you are on your computer, please type in comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand side of your screen. If you are on the phone, you may press *3 to raise your hand to enter the queue. There are no public comments at this time, Dr. Mountain.
Thank you. I will do a roll call and establish who is in favor, opposed, or abstains. Carpenter? Ms. Carpenter?
Oh, I'm sorry. You cut out in the middle of my name. Yes.
Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey?
Yes.
Ms. Niebles?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes. So that is carried by a unanimous vote. All right, we are ready to move to B, which is request to admit students. Healthcare Career College Vocational Nursing Program, Ms. Della Rosa, NEC. Is there any new or additional information that you would like to add to your report?
No, I do not have any additional information.
Thank you so much. Can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
John Deerking will so move.
Thank you.
Abraham Hill, second.
Thank you. Is there any comment? Is there anyone here that represents the program that would like to speak?
Ms. Ibera, I've sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hello, this is Maria Teresa Ibarra, and I'm the Director of Vocational Nursing for the program of Healthcare Career College. And I requested to admit the student on October 31, 2022, to start with 20 students.
Thank you. Do you have additional comments?
No more.
Thank you. Is there any comment from the board or discussion? Seeing none, are there additional public comments?
If you have a public comment on this matter, please enter comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand side of your screen. If you are on the phone, you may raise your hand by pressing *3 to enter the queue. I see no public comment requests.
Thank you. We will now do a roll call vote to see who's in favor of the NEC recommendations for Healthcare Career College. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Luz.
Yes.
Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Ms. Nieblitz.
Yes.
I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. The motion is carried unanimously. We will now move on to University of Antelope Valley Vocational Nursing Program, Ms. Della Rosa, Nursing Education Consultant. Is there any new additional information that you would like to add to your report?
Yes, I was going to point out a typographical error. If I may, I would like to direct the board's attention to page 2 under staff recommendations. In the item number 2, there is an error in the type of class. The request was for a part-time class, so if you can please cross out the word full-time and write part-time class instead. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
John Deerking will so move.
Thank you.
Abraham Hill seconds.
Thank you. Is there any comment from a representative from the program?
Ms. Muthea, I have resent you a request to unmute. Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Hi, this is Akhila. I'm the Director of Nursing at University of Antelope Valley. I have no additions to make, and I really want to extend my appreciation for Ms. Della Rosa for her support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board questions or discussion? Seeing no hands raised, is there any further public comment?
If you have public comment, you may enter comment in the Q&A at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or if you are on the phone, you may press *3 to raise your hand and enter the queue. I see no public comment.
Thank you so much. I will now do a roll call vote to see who is in favor of the NEC recommendations. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mr. Durking.
Yes.
Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Ms. Luce.
Yes.
Mr. Maxey.
Yes.
Ms. Nieblitz.
Yes.
And I'm Carol. Yes, it is carried unanimously. We will go on to number C, reconsideration of provisional approval, Southeast California College Vocational Program, Ms. Della Rosa, Nursing Education. Is there any new or additional information to add to your report, Ms. Della Rosa?
I do not have anything to add. However, I'd like to congratulate the program on achieving 100% on the most recent quarter. That's all. Thank you.
Wow, that is worth saying congratulations. That's great. Approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second.
John Deerking would so move.
Thank you.
Abraham Hill second.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I already did that. Any board discussion or questions? Seeing no hands raised, public comment.
If you have public comment, please enter comment in the lower right-hand side Q&A box on your screen, or you may press *3 to raise your hand to be entered into the queue on the phone. I see no public comment.
Thank you. I will now do a roll call vote to accept the recommendations of the NEC. Ms. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mr. Durking,
Yes.
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Ms. Luce,
Yes.
Mr. Maxey,
Yes.
Ms. Needless.
Yes.
I'm Carol Mountain. I vote yes as well. That motion is carried unanimously. We will move on. D, pattern of admission, career care program, Ms. Silverman, NEC. Oh, I apologize. This has been removed from the agenda. We will move on to E. Consideration of placement on provisional approval, Downey Adult School Nursing Program, Dr. Fairchild, Nursing Education Consultant. Dr. Fairchild, is there any new or additional information to your report?
No, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can I have a motion to approve the report and adopt the recommendations and a second?
Luce, so motions.
Thank you.
John Deerking will second.
Thank you. Is there any comment from a representative of the program?
Ms. Pacheco, I've sent you the request to unmute.
Okay, this is Mariana Pacheco. I'm the director of the program. And since I've been in contact, thank you so much to Ms. Fairchild. We've been in communication back and forth in regards to my passage rate. There was a couple of things that when she came out, that I'm going to be changing, which would be any new groups, they have to reach, on the tape score, it would be a 5. 5 is the highest, so I won't be admitting any students that do not reach a 5, which would be a 12th grade level competency, both for math and English. I was, prior to this, averaging out both math and English, but based on what Ms. Fairchild said, I will only average out math alone and English alone in order for them to be able to reach that mastery level that we need. The other thing is I continue to still have students that have not tested, that are 2 to 3 years out, and they're coming back and requesting that I send a new application for retesting. And I'm finding that those students that have been out for such a long time just aren't passing. The other thing is that I'm struggling with is, once I submit the record of nursing, I have students that constantly delay their tests. I'm trying to work with those students and stay in contact with them, and I'm doing remediation and on campus to see if I can help them pass the test, because it's been 2 to 3 months out and they're still trying to they're not scheduling their test. I know for the January 2021 class that just graduated, I'm going to add an 80% passage. Everybody has taken the test. I still have 2 outliers that have not taken the test. And I have no date as to when they plan to take the test. I will continue to try to reach out to those two outliers and assist them in whatever way I can so they can pass their NCLEX. The current class that just graduated in May 2021, I did some work with them once they graduated, and I submitted their record of nursing and on how to take a test and how to be able to successfully pass. Currently, I'm at an 81.2% with that class. I'm continuing to reach out because I still have 11 that have not taken their test. I'm trying to encourage them to try to take their test this August. And I still have a couple. I have one for sure that said that she will not take her test until September. I will work with her to try to help her to successfully pass her NCLEX. I've also implemented with these last two classes, I've implemented and paid for their program for their NCLEX, which is UWorld. And I'm also going to be communicating with another organization to see if they can help me with the actual taking of the test. I've also incorporated NCLEX Gen new questions into the last half of the term, so the instructors are starting to use the new NCLEX Gen questions because I know that's going to be one of the things that will be occurring. I just wanted to give you an update on all the things that I'm doing. It's just that I know that you look at it by quarter, you don't look at it by class. So I will continue to try to see what I can do with those outliers from 1, 2, 3 years back. Because I have one that's going to be testing from 2015 and never took the test. I don't know how she's going to do. That's my update.
Well, thank you for the update and for all the work that you're doing to help students be successful.
Thank you so much for everyone for listening. And I will continue to work with Ms. Fairchild to see what other things I can do to bring up my passage rate so that way it becomes consistent. But I know I can't stop people from, right? I think I talked to this, that I can't tell someone that they have to do a full remediation in order for them to, after haven't taken it after 6 months. I don't think I can do that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you using mountain measurements?
Yes.
Because you might find that really helpful, being able to track, especially those people that are doing poorly. You'll be able to see statistically what questions are giving students problems. And it could be a really useful tool for you, considering you have these students that aren't testing and then they're coming back later, and it might really show you some trending. It could be really helpful.
Okay. So I will start looking at those trends, and I know that the other thing is I'm going to be doing a couple of other things that I'm going to incorporate with this class that's going to be graduating come at the end of this year in December. So I've already started working with them on a day that they're on their off day. That they're not in class. So I've already started working with them in regards to how to actually take the test and for them to feel confident that they can take the test. A lot of this is test anxiety. So I have to come up with ways of how do I get past that test anxiety, and all the students that basically come to me have not gone to college. They're coming, older adults sometimes wanting a second career.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further board questions or discussion? Seeing none, is there any further public comment?
If you have public comment, you may type in comment in the Q&A at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, or if you're on the phone, you may press *3 to enter the queue. I'm seeing no public comment.
Thank you. I will now do a roll call vote to see who is in favor of accepting the recommendation from Dr. Fairchild. Ms. Carpenter.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hill.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Luz.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey. Is Mr. Maxey still with us? All right. Ms. Neeblis.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes, that's carried unanimously. And we will move forward to item number 6, Executive Officers Report. I will turn it over to Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good morning again. And my report is, of course, in the packet. And I don't really have anything notable to update on that, but I'd be delighted to answer any questions either on the report or anything else that might be going on.
Thank you. Do I need to open it up for comments?
You don't need to, but I'm always happy to talk. You know that.
I know that. Are there any questions from the board or further comments? Seeing none, we will move forward to item number 8. Oh, sorry, did I miss item 7?
No. We are at 6A, the Executive Committee's report, Dr. Mountain.
Sorry, thank you so much.
Anytime.
So we will move forward to Executive Committee report. We don't have anything to report on. And everything was covered in Ms. Yamaguchi's report. So we will move forward to the future board meeting logistics, discussion, recommendations, and possible action. Ms. Yamaguchi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and board members, we started having a conversation with the executive committee at our last meeting. Given the authorization for the next few months to meet virtually via WebEx as we are doing now, or to meet in person as we did in May, we'd actually thought to bring the concept to the full board for kind of hopefully a robust conversation and get some feelings from as many of you as care to weigh in on really, I think, what you would like to see in terms of meeting in person, meeting virtually. If we meet in person, would there be any topics? For example, you'll recall we had a really good training and orientation series of workshops in May for you. There are any number of topics that we'd be really interested in pursuing a discussion for the board members on. So we wanted to have this opportunity for the board members to weigh in on what you would like us to do, because at this point, remember, we have the November meeting, the February meeting, and the May meeting where we do have this option. And just from a budgetary standpoint, of course, of course, that meeting via WebEx entirely does save the board a considerable amount of money. But then again, there's a tremendous value in getting together physically, being able to do some extra work, via, a more informal meeting, and then having the board meeting, the business meeting. So like I said, we wanted to try to throw this open. So I'd be really delighted to hear from any of the board members. And of course, we'll be taking notes on this. And based on what board members suggest or ask, we'll probably work with the executive committee at our next meeting to flesh out our plans for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi. Any discussion from the board, comments?
Oh, good.
Ms. Carpenter, I
This is
see your hand
Elise.
raised.
Did you call on me? Yes, I did. I found that getting together last month or 2 months ago was tremendously valuable, especially in view of the fact that we had several new board members, and getting to know one another, I thought was very important. I would like to see us get together in person because, of course, you know my background, and to me, relationships are the key to everything. But if we did perhaps an in-person board meeting and then a virtual board meeting and alternate, I would certainly be in support of that for cost-saving measures.
Mr. Hill, you did have your hand raised. Are you no longer interested in making a comment?
Well, I'd like to piggyback on what Ms. Carpenter had just said. I think that, alternating in-person and virtual meetings would really balance things out. And yes, I did appreciate, and what a wonderful time we had at that last in-person meeting. You cannot replace the relationships that was built during that time. And so I just want to emphasize that it's very important for us to still meet in person, but just be financially responsible. I think the WebEx would really benefit the board.
Thank you so much. Ms. Luz, it looks like you have a comment as well.
Yes, I just wanted to add, I do value the cost savings, which I think is important. I also think it's really important to take into consider transmission rates, because I know many meetings lately that I've had in person have moved online. So I think that should also be in the mix. I think we should err on the side of caution to make sure we're not, spreading COVID and so, maybe we can just proceed with caution and strike a balance, taking those two things into consideration.
Thank you so much. Ms. Neeblis.
I agree with Ms. Luce about the transmission rates. Here in LA County, they've actually put up a warning for monkeypox. And so now we're contending with COVID and monkeypox. So yes, being extra cautious when it comes to meeting and considering meeting in person is one of my key concerns.
Thank you. Ms. Yamaguchi, back to you.
That's great. I really appreciate that, but let me kind of do this in reverse order. I think Ms. Cruz Jones, when she was speaking for the department, had mentioned that we do make certain that if we're doing an in-person meeting, we do certainly make certain that the board members are vaccinated first and foremost, and we will, of course, always carry a box of masks with us. But as you know, there's no way we can with 100% certainty guarantee that anybody who comes from the public would be vaccinated. And so you're right, the risk there is considerable, and we have no idea what's going to happen in terms of new variants, and now with monkeypox. So you're right that caution is very, very much warranted here. And so I really had appreciated that. In terms of just, I think to get a better kind of tighter focus, let me see if I can't sort of draw you guys out a little bit, because as I mentioned, so we have a meeting in November, we have a meeting in February, and we have a meeting in May. February is our election meeting. So I'm thinking if we were to do a meeting in person with extra time to do some extra things, would you want to do something in November, which would be a lot more informal and structured, but based on some things that people want to discuss, or have that meeting in February where we do elections and probably some committee assignment restructurings, perhaps things like that. So, and we don't need to like come to a decision today, but I wanted to get some thoughts. But in addition to that, I know that a number of board members have reached out to ask myself or any of the other team members. We'd really like to hear a bit more about this aspect of the board's work. So I think what I'd really enjoy having from the members is kind of a laundry list of topics that you might like to see, say a workshop or a panel discussion or some other sort of training that we could certainly organize for you. If there are, for example, we've invited folks from the Capitol to come speak. We've invited folks from, obviously, not just the department, which has been great, but we've had our deputy secretary and folks from agency come. There's really no limit to what we can think through. There may be limits, of course, on who's going to say yes, of course, but I think all things being equal, we're more than happy to pursue any kind of option that the board members would really like to hear. And I think just to give you a bit of a flavor, I think the board members are aware of all the policy issues that are looming for us, not the least of which, of course, is enacting our pending legislation, enacting our regulatory packages, responding to other suggestions, doing some public outreach. We'll be needing to do some things like that in general. I think a couple of years ago, we held some really great town hall meetings on things like types of simulation that the schools can use, do use, the kind of wave of the future in terms of nursing education. Like I said, anything that you can think of, but we've also, just on a more, I think, pragmatic level, we've also done kind of a harder look and a more tutorial-based things on, say, for example, the balloting and disciplinary processes, the other enforcement issues, how, basically like the life of a complaint case from the time somebody calls it in to the final adjudication of it. I know that a number of board members have also asked to have a little bit more discussion on how the NECs work with a school, and certainly right now we've talked a lot about the process for a new program's approval, because we will be, of course, launching our next round of that soon, very soon. So like I said, let me be quiet for a second and let you all, basically just tell us anything that has occurred to you over the past months, that things that you would really kind of like to have us spend a little bit more time, because I know that at our business meetings, we don't tend to have, the time and the ability to have a more organic kind of conversation. Okay, well, you could also always email or call, because, like I said, we don't have to make any decisions today. But like I said, I would really enjoy hearing your thoughts and ideas. So we'll bring back any kind of ideas, and of course, the staff, they have a big old sack of ideas, all of them. So we'll be working with the executive committee as well to just kind of flesh out our plans, I think. But I wonder though if anybody does have strong feelings about meeting in person in November or February.
I personally really like the idea of at least having one of those meetings. I know we had discussed November. For me, either one is fine, but I like the idea of at least meeting in person once. I understand and respect those people that have concerns about the continuing issues with COVID. So I understand that, but I still think I'm with Ms. Carpenter that having that meeting in person was really beneficial.
Well, actually, Madam Chair, let me kind of back up a little bit to clarify that too, because remember that the way that this legislation authorizes us, we can actually still do this in a hybridized fashion, that we can have the meeting convene in public, but board members may also log on via WebEx and participate that way. So we do still have that option.
That actually sounds like it might be a really great option.
I think so too.
Any further comments on this topic?
I think since we're electing, this is Nelly Nieblas, since we're electing new officers and having a whole new kind of, not whole new, but the election of new officers, I think February would be a good idea for the in-person meeting. That's where I would lean.
Great. Good, that's very helpful. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further comments, we will move forward to the agenda item number 8, licensing and evaluations, report recommendations and possible action. Licensing division report, Ms. Brown.
Hello, good morning. So the licensing division report was included with the board meeting materials, and I would be happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Hello, sirs.
Hey, Ed, nice to see you. You're making him look good.
Mr. Maxey, you are unmuted.
Ready to be somewhere else like a
And you always impress me with these.
What?
Every time you wear the blazers that just are right on point.
Oh, well, I'm just trying to match my friend.
Did anyone have any questions? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Let's move on to item number 9. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Legislative and regulations report, recommendations and possible actions. Ms. Carpenter, are you available to give the committee report, please?
Yes, I am. Excuse me. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, the minutes of the August 4th meeting, they're labeled agenda item 9A in your board meeting materials. The Legislative and Regulations Committee motioned to refer the proposed amended language to Business and Professions Code section 1881.2D and 4531.1D. In your packet, there's also a memorandum labeled agenda item 9A1 from Executive Officer Yamaguchi, dated July 26, which provides a summary and background of the proposed technical language. The memorandum contains the proposed language, which we are bringing to the board today for a vote. At this time, council may wish to provide comment, and we invite questions from the board. Mr. Swenson, are you available?
Yes, thank you. This matter comes before the board upon a motion from the committee. So no, I believe it was moved and seconded at committee, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Carpenter. So it's ready for discussion at this time.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay, well, moving on to agenda item 9A2 in your board materials. It contains 6 amendments to Senate Bill 994, which have been sent to the Neuropathic Medicine Committee. Key points include the definition of supervision in the context of the working relationship with the neuropathic doctor and the licensed vocational nurse. Other highlights include statutory language specifying that the LVN will not be off-site, the sharing of enforcement complaints between BVNPT and NMC, and the codification of the board's presidential decision number 2020-01, which, as you may recall, include cosmetic procedures and injectables. Is that correct, Mr. Swenson?
That's correct.
Thank you. Due to the time constraints of the legislative session, board staff was unable to put this language before the board prior to this meeting. Ms. Yamaguchi and councils, do you have any comments regarding these 6 amendments to the bill?
Thank you, Ms. Carpenter. Actually, it's hard really to say because the amendments we put forward were not everything that we would like to see, but we think that all things being considered, it will help us to administer this bill safely. But also the amendments themselves are not in print yet, so we also don't know if the senator's office or if anybody like in the policy committees have made any changes yet. So we don't really know what the final version of the bill will look like, but I believe it's a good faith assumption that those 6 amendments will go through. Basically, the spirit of the amendments we asked for are aimed at, I think, making some clarity, I think, in the reportings and supervision relationships between the naturopaths and the vocational nurses. So we don't actually need a motion to approve the amendment language, but we would have wanted to, and we do apologize for not being able to consult a little bit more before forwarding them. But the nature of it being middle August somewhat precluded that. And as you'll recall, the board had essentially in May authorized us to express concerns and work with them to make sure that the bill was implementable. I think that's fine, but I don't know that we have to have a motion, and I would defer to council on that. But I think it'd be a really good thing to have a motion to approve those things.
So my recollection is that there was a motion and a second at the committee level, and it's being referred to the board for possible action on that motion. If not, then a motion can be made and seconded at this time to approve the language of the amendments.
Fair enough. Actually, I may have misspoken because I was speaking to the 994. Did I skip the number 1, which would be the cleanup language? I do apologize. I had stepped away for just a moment.
Yes, yes. Ms. Yamaguchi, this is Christy Schilch, Regulatory Counsel. So that item had come to the board as a recommendation from the Office of Administrative Law, and the committee had considered it. And you had discussed the motion from the committee, and Mr. Swenson had indicated that it comes to the board as a fully formed motion, so it doesn't need a first and second. But there still needs to be discussion and action by the board to approve the recommendation of the committee. Mr. Swenson, isn't that correct?
Thank you very much for the correction. I had transposed things in my head. I apologize.
So at this time, should we call for questions from the board? Mr. Swenson?
Yes, there's a motion pending on the cleanup language that was recommended by the Office of Administrative Law. That should be taken up first. A board discussion and public comment followed by a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So are there any comments or questions from the board regarding A1? Seeing none, are there any public comments?
If you'd like to make a public comment on this item, please type comment in the Q&A box at the bottom right side of your screen, or if you are on the phone, you may press *3 to raise your hand and enter the queue. I see no public comment.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes, and Dr. Mountain, I apologize. I should have taken a break between items 1 and 2.
No problem. We got this. It's okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Durkin?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Maxey? We'll move forward. Ms. Niebles?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. That is carried by a unanimous vote.
So then there's no action to be taken on agenda item 9A2. Is that correct, Mr. Swenson?
The proposed amendments have already been forwarded to the bill author. It would be possible to approve the amended language after the fact, but the proverbial horse is out of the barn at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Madam President?
Yes.
This is Christy Shields, Regulatory Counsel for the board. I would suggest, and I'll defer to board counsel on this, but I would suggest maybe a motion from the board to ratify the amendments as set forth in the meeting materials, the proposed amendments, I should say, to ratify the proposed amendments, because I do think, Mr. Swenson, it might be helpful if we could have the board's blessing, so to speak. What these amendments, if you look at the item in your packet, the intent of these amendments is to help clarify the relationship and the scope of practice for a licensed vocational nurse when they're working under the supervision of a naturopathic doctor. You may recall at our last board meeting, there were some concerns raised about how the scopes of practice of a naturopathic doctor and a licensed vocational nurse might match up, so to speak. And so these amendments are intended to address some of those concerns and also concerns that staff have had regarding certain practices that they think should not be permitted while working under a naturopathic doctor. So you'll see those proposed amendments in the first amendment number 1 in your packet. So numbers subdivision C and D and E address those. Also lays out what the agreement is supposed to look like when they are being supervised by a naturopathic doctor. There are supervision protocols, what's in the practice agreement, which could be a part of the employment agreement. And so that there's clarification for the licensed vocational nurse as to what their duties and responsibilities are when they're working under this practitioner. So I think these amendments were intended to address a lot of those concerns that we discussed at our last meeting. And also that the boards and the committee share information if there are enforcement matters that arise relating to the supervision relationships that would be established by this legislation. So that you'll see in amendment number 4. And there are some amendments to the Naturopathic Medicine Committee's Practice Act that also would correspond with these changes. So I don't know if the board members have any questions, but I just wanted to kind of explain the impetus for these changes and suggest that perhaps a ratification motion might be in order.
So this is Ken Swenson. I would concur with that, and the recommended form of motion would be to approve and ratify the requested amendments listed in the materials for agenda item 9A2.
Alita Carpenter, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Swenson.
Abraham Hill will second.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Swenson, then we open it for board comment, correct?
Yes, board comment followed by public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no board comment, can we please open for public comment?
If you have public comment on this item, please type comment in the Q&A icon at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Or if you're on the phone, you may press *3 to raise your hand and enter the queue. I see no public comment, Dr. Mountain.
Thank you so much. I will now do a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. McAfee? Okay, moving on. Ms. Neeblis?
Yes.
And I'm Carol Mountain, and I also vote yes. It is carried unanimously. I believe that we are now ready to move on to 9B, which is bill tracking. Ms. Yamaguchi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a couple of the bills noted that we've been tracking, of course, chief amongst them, SB 1436, which is, of course, the Respiratory Care Board's own sunset bill, but does set forth some language that basically sets out the conditions for LVNs to provide care to patients who need respiratory care and are especially on mechanical ventilation. I think the board may recall this has been an issue that's been in front of our board and the Respiratory Care Board for many, many years. We think, though, that this is not, of course, the finished to the whole issue, but we think it's a really, really good step forward. I think while we implement this bill, and we did get a little bit of language put into it, I think will help us to better enforce any problems that do come up. Generally speaking, we're going to then now, once that bill is chaptered, and we do expect it to be so, we'll be working with RCB to make sure that these guidelines for training are set forth and implemented as smoothly and as thoroughly as possible. And but this bill will be If I'm not mistaken, on the third reading file, it should move out of the House and then back for concurrence and then to the governor's desk without any real delays. Madam Chair, may I ask answer any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Yamaguchi. I see no questions. AB 1662.
Yes, and here's another interesting bill. I think the committee, the board might recall some discussion on this back at our special meeting in April. This bill basically sets out some new conditions under which a licensee can ask for a pre-screening, if you will, to work through whether or not they really could be licensed to practice. And this, of course, is a DCA-wide bill. It is basically enjoyed one of those very rare things in which almost all of the DCA boards agree that this is a bad idea or an unworkable idea in the least. The bill has been heard in appropriations but moved to suspense. The cost of it for every single one of us would have been fairly prohibitive. So I think it's actually probably a good bet that it will not move forward this year, but you never know. So we will, of course, continue to watch this if it moves out of suspense. Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I did see the comments from the Board of Registered Nursing, which would certainly affect our applicants as well, that clinical facilities may have different guidelines than the board's guidelines, and we could really be doing somebody a disservice. So I appreciated their comments as well.
Exactly right. And I believe we had forwarded that thought to the author's office as well, that there's no way that any kind of decree or pre-screening, it would be binding, and just the amount of time alone, everything could change for that licensee.
Absolutely. Thank you. Oh, I believe we are ready to move on to rulemaking update. Ms. Pierce. Is Ms. Pierce on?
Yes, Madam President. Thank you very much. I apologize. I had to unmute. First of all, I wanted to note that the emergency rulemaking for AB 1536, which is the new school program approval process, was approved by the Office of Administrative Law on June 27 of 2022. And that will be effective through June 27 of 2023. This does have, this is emergency rulemaking, so we have a limited amount of time to reach out to stakeholders. And at this point, I would like to defer to Council Christy Shields to comment on outreach as well as further rulemaking regarding this package. Thank you.
Good morning, board members. So if you recall, when we were going through the proposed regulations for the emergency rulemaking, we had discussed maybe doing some outreach informally and formally to see if there were anything that the community, the regulated community wanted to address in this proposal. But I think that given the fact that our emergency authority, which is temporary, because this is a temporary process until you adopt the regulations formally as a permanent proposal, since they expire in June, I think my recommendation is that we proceed with the regular rulemaking process, which will allow a 45-day public comment period, and that's formally noticed. And the regulated community at that point would have the opportunity to provide input, and then we'd bring back any comments adverse comments to you at the next board meeting, possibly, depending on how quickly we're able to get the regular rulemaking documents filed. So your prior motion was to proceed with the regular rulemaking, and I would just suggest that we continue along that path because I don't think that we're going to have time to do some like informal outreach to engage at this point because of the fact that the emergency regulation authority we have expires in June. And that seems like a long ways away, but it's actually not from a rulemaking perspective because we have a lot of control agencies that we have to get through to approve our regulations on a permanent basis. So we have to get through the department, the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, the Office of Administrative Law, Department of Finance. And so that is a long process. And so in order to make sure we don't miss any opportunity to adopt these and have a seamless transition, I would suggest that the board continue along with its current motion and not take any further action on this item. But I will defer to the board if they think that they want to put in some time to do some informal outreach before we begin regular rulemaking. Does any board member have a question about that? Ms. Yamaguchi, did you?
Thank you. I did want to kind of add, just kind of as a little bit of a sidebar, some of the things that I do know are already planned to that sort of in like a parallel fashion. We do of course already have a directors forum scheduled for mid-September, and I know that the NECs have also sent out save the dates and planned for the sort of tutorial and outreach meetings for anybody interested in starting a new program throughout September, October, November, and December. So I know that we do have some, as I said, pretty much parallel, but very closely paralleled activities planned that will help us to make sure that the regulated community is aware of the new regulations. But in light of the need, I think, to really have that more formal audience, if you will. You know, I agree with counsel and Ms. Piers that putting together something, you know, akin to, of course, a public hearing, whereby and that public comment period would be definitely, I think, a very good thing for the board in the interest of transparency and in the interest of accountability to our community.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Madam President, this is Doris Piers. I had in error taken up item 9C2 in front of 9C1. I apologize to the board for that. So I approached AB 1536 program approval process without regard to the 9C1 fee schedule. Please let me know when I can proceed.
I think you can proceed right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So the fee schedule package was submitted to the Office of Administrative Law on July 28. I did reach out to them on the advice of counsel just yesterday, inquiring about how things are going and introducing myself and letting them know that I would be working with them for any amendments or changes that they may recommend. So I haven't heard back from them as of right now. However, I do want the board to know that that was submitted on July 28. And at this time, I do want to defer to Ms. Christy Shields for any further comments from council. Thanks.
So I wasn't at the beginning. Do we cover budget already, Ms. Yamaguchi? Okay, so you understand there's more urgency to the fee schedule implementation than when we originally started at the beginning of the year or actually I think we started the end of last year to adopt a fee increase. So we filed a request for effective on filing. If the Office of Administrative Law has no issues with the proposal, the request was that they make the fee increase effective as soon as possible, which would mean possibly September instead of in January, which was the original target date, if we had done it on a regular basis. So we talked about at our meeting, I want to say it was June or May, but our last meeting where we talked about the fee schedule, we talked about it quarterly effective dates. Those are typically when regulations are adopted. They're adopted on a quarterly basis, but you can request if there's an emergency or an urgent need that the regulations become effective on filing. And because of the fact that we have an impending structural imbalance issue, as discussed in the budget update, we have requested it be effective on filing. So as soon as we have any indication if the Office of Administrative Law might approve, we will be sure to make sure the stakeholders are made aware of the fee increase and when that would become effective. And again, it's a prospective fee increase. It's not retroactive. So anyone that's renewed before, let's just say hypothetically September, would not be subjected to the fee increase. It would only be people that would be renewing in September or later. Does any board member have any question about this? Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. It was really helpful, but I see no questions. Any further questions from the board? All right, I believe we're ready to move forward to item 10, enforcement, report, recommendations, and possible actions. Ms. Wood?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Antoinette Wood. I am the Enforcement Division Chief. You have the Enforcement Division report. Does anyone have any questions about that? All right, hearing none, I will go ahead and move on. I would like to talk about today, we are excited to announce with our recent meeting with the Division of Investigations. We recently met with the head, Terrence Brass. We are working with them to create a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, so that we can keep some of the lower level cases within the division. We are hopeful this will create some budget savings, as each case costs on average between $5,000 and $10,000. This week alone, we took back 4 cases, which has a potential savings of $20,000. Did anyone have any questions on that? All right, we're also excited to report that we have a conversion of some positions. By converting staff service analysis positions to program tech 3 positions, we are saving over $12,000 per position and have been able to move the previous staff services manager position over to the special investigations unit, which will also create a salary savings and allow the board to take on more investigations from the Division of Investigations. We believe we will see a significant amount of savings with these 2 changes. Are there any questions on that? All right, and I wanted to give an update to our reinstatement hearings. We currently have 14 hearings pending. 7 cases have a hearing date. 7 cases are waiting for a hearing date, taking an average of 138 days to have a petition heard. Currently, 130 total hearings have been completed since February of 2021. It would have been 35 hearings without any intervention. Did anyone have any questions about that? All right, that completes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't believe Mr. Maxey is on with us. He was to do an enforcement committee report. Ms. Yamaguchi?
Yes, that's correct. He did excuse himself. Ms. Wood, would you be able to provide Mr. Maxey's update and present for the board members any action items?
I absolutely can do that.
Thank you so much.
First of all, I wanted to discuss the knowledge transfer plan, outreach plan, strategic matrix, and the enforcement division overview, all of which are going to be located in the meeting items that were sent to you. If you wanted to pull those up, I'll give you a quick second. So the first one I want to go ahead and talk about is going to be the knowledge transfer plan. The knowledge transfer plan, in order to meet our strategic plan goals, we created a knowledge transfer plan to articulate how we will handle staff's professional development, ensure that we have sufficiently trained staff to handle promotions and retirements. Did anyone have any questions about that plan? All right, I'll go to our outreach plan next. As part of our strategic plan goals, we have created an outreach plan. Our goal is to ensure that we educate our licensees and applicants so they don't end up with an enforcement case. We're hopeful that this ensures consumer safety by having nurses and psychiatric technicians who do not engage in inappropriate behaviors. Anyone have any questions about this plan?
No, but I just want to say thank you so much. I think this is really going to be helpful, especially for people that are students who don't have a clear-cut idea of how enforcement works. So thank you so much.
Right, next I'll move on to the strategic plan matrix. So the enforcement division has been working on completing its portion of the strategic plan. We accomplished this by working on several documents with the enforcement committee, which we have submitted for approval to the board, which includes the knowledge transfer plan, the outreach plan, the enforcement division overview, and the board manual for the enforcement division. We are hopeful that today you will approve them. Are there any questions on the matrix? Okay, so we hope to have the committee strategic plan matrix for you for the next one. So next, it looks like we have the the enforcement division overview. This document contains up-to-date information for our board staff to learn more about how the enforcement division works. This is an overview document and is supported by policies and procedures that have also been recently updated. So this is hopefully going to be something that we can hand to new staff to get them up to speed very quickly. As you know, the enforcement division often has new staff come in. The training process is anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And hopefully by having a document such as this, we'll be able to get people up and moving and training faster. Did anybody have any questions about this document? Next, the board member enforcement division manual. We updated a prior document so that we can provide board members with education and training related to the enforcement division and the board members' roles and responsibilities within the enforcement process. Did anyone have any questions about this document? All right, last but not least, the suicide prevention video. As discussed, the enforcement committee would like to move forward with producing the suicide prevention video based on the script that was submitted for board review. If the board approves, the enforcement division will begin working with the Department of Consumer Affairs Public Affairs Unit. If approved, the video will be viewed and approved by the enforcement committee prior to publishing. Anyone have any questions on that?
Mr. Swenson, do we need to take a vote on this?
My recommendation would be to take up 10B6, the suicide prevention public service announcement script. The other matters probably should be just re-referred to the committee so that both committee members can review it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be approved by the board at this time, but the suicide prevention public service announcement script does need to be approved so it can go forward. There were not two members at the committee meeting, so this does not come before the board as a motion. So a motion and a second would be required. The recommended form of motion would be to approve the script for the suicide prevention public service announcement as presented.
Ms. Yamaguchi, you had your hand up.
I did, and Mr. Swenson had very, very elegantly covered what I was going to say. These were discussed at the committee's meeting, but we didn't have Ms. Rooks in attendance, unfortunately. But we could, and I think, again, Mr. Swenson very succinctly put that the action item on items Roman numeral 6 to have the board approve this script so that we can move forward expeditiously with DCA comms would be the necessary action for today. Ms. Wood, did you want to ask for the board for any motions on the other items?
I believe as long as the board is comfortable with us following the outreach plan to move that forward, we are good to go.
Right. So, Madam Chair, really then that just that one item, then if you could ask the board members for a motion and some action.
Thank you so much. Do we have someone who'd like to make a motion?
John Deerking would so move.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A loose seconds.
Mr. Swenson, I should also call for public comment, yes?
Yeah, so just to restate the motion, then the motion is to approve the script for the suicide prevention public service announcement as presented in the materials. And so board comment and public comment are in order at this time.
Thank you. Is there any further board comment? Seeing none, is there any public comment?
If you'd like to make public comment at this time, please type comment in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand side of your screen, or if you are on the phone, you may press *3 to enter the queue. I see no public comment at this time.
Thank you. I believe that, I will take a roll call vote. Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Durking?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Ms. Luce?
Yes.
Mr. Maxey? Still not back. Ms. Needless?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Carol Mountain. I also vote yes. That is carried by a unanimous vote. I believe we are ready to move on to item 11, public comment on items not on the agenda. We open that up for public comment, correct?
Yes, the floor can be open for public comment for matters not on the agenda, and the board cannot take action and only put the matter on for future discussion at a future board meeting and an agenda.
Thank you.
If you'd like to make a public comment during this action item, please type comment in the Q&A at the bottom right corner of your screen, or to raise your hand on the phone, you may press *3. Ms. Yamaguchi?
Thank you very much. Actually, I wanted to sort of abuse the the opportunity, but one, I want to note a great deal of amazement and great respect for the board carrying through in really efficient fashion today's orders of business. And again, I also just wanted to take the opportunity to say my own personal appreciation, respect, and tremendous value for our staff, everyone present, everyone who's not present, who does such a great job every day. And a special hat off to Rebecca for her double duty as our board meeting host and all the other analytical functions she serves. Madam Chair.
Here, I would second all the things that you said and very much appreciate all the hard work at the board, and everything you guys do every day is very much appreciated. I guess we will move on to item 12, suggestions for future agenda items. Any board members have suggestions? Says a note, the board may not discuss or take any action on those items. So, oh, that's from before. So any suggestions for future agenda items from the board? Go ahead, Ms. Yamaguchi. I see you go.
I do have one, actually. I wanted to call attention to the board that I was made aware this week that we do have a need for a very brief special meeting in the near future to deal with a disciplinary action, and it would be a closed session meeting. So I wanted the board members to know that we will be sending out a Survey Monkey or other device to find out some availability. But I do think that it would be a very brief and to the point meeting, but it will be a closed session to deal with a disciplinary case. But I expect that to be probably mid to late September.
Thank you for that warning or preview. I appreciate that. Anything further? Ms. Shields? I see your
Thank
hand
you,
is
Dr. Mountain. Yes, so I think that in light of these two legislative proposals we were talking about today with Respiratory Care Board and Naturopathic Medicine Committee, there may be some need to analyze and discuss possible regulatory proposals to implement some of those provisions. So I just want to put that on the radar because we're going to need to be able to give specific guidance and direction to the regulated community about what we expect to see in these relationships. So that usually means regulations.
Thank you for that reminder. Anything else? Ms. Carpenter, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, I was just going to say that I was going to agree with Ms. Let me make sure I get this correct. Sleege.
Shields.
I'm sorry, I was practicing.
That's okay, no problem. I get it all the time.
The Legislation and Regulations Committee will be meeting prior to our next board meeting, and I was hopeful that we would be able to come up with an update at that time. But yes, I agree that that needs to be on the future agenda.
Okay, seeing no further hands, anybody else have a final comments? I see no further hands. Thank you so much for your participation and coming to this meeting. We will adjourn at 10:43. So thank you so much.
Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.